Welcome to NTD News Today. I'm Chris Beers. Here are today's top stories. Proposed cuts for various immigration-related agencies. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are now criticizing President Biden's budget proposal. Could disruptions, capacity problems, and higher prices all become the new normal in aviation? Lawmakers heard new testimony on Capitol Hill. Clash of the Titans. Well, the tech titans. CEO Elon Musk threatened to sue Microsoft. We'll tell you what it's all about. A Facebook settlement may put money in your pocket. Users can now apply for their share of a more than $700 million settlement. Elon Musk's SpaceX launched its next-generation Starship cruise vessel. However, minutes later, the rocket and vehicle exploded in the sky.
5, 4, 3.
The Starship cruise vessel was launched for the first time atop the company's powerful new Super Heavy rocket in an unmanned test flight. The two-stage rocket ship stands taller than the Statue of Liberty. It blasted off from the company's spaceport in Texas. SpaceX hoped it would be a 90-minute debut flight into space. However, less than 4 minutes into the flight, the upper stage Starship failed to separate from the lower stage. The combined vehicle was seen flipping end over end before exploding. But it wasn't considered a total loss. SpaceX officials on the webcast cheered the feat of getting the Starship and booster rocket off the ground for a clean launch. They declared the brief episode a successful test flight. The House has passed a bill that would limit female school athletes to people born female. It's the first such legislation considered on the House floor. The ban would only apply to schools and universities receiving federal funding. The bill defines gender as based solely on a person's reproductive biology and genetics at birth. The legislation passed the House by a majority vote, but faces pushback in the Democratic-controlled Senate. The White House has also threatened to veto it. At least 20 other states have imposed similar restrictions on transgender athletes in school athletic events. Lawmakers are discussing President Biden's proposed budget for immigration-related agencies. Representatives from both sides of the aisle are criticizing the proposed cuts. Here's more.
President Biden's proposed budget would establish a 2-year border contingency fund. The fund would grant around $1 billion in extra funding to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, but only after a certain number of encounters with illegal immigrants has been met. At a Tuesday hearing, Democratic Representative Henry Cuellar of Texas criticized the fund, saying it rests on the premise that the government can literally contract and execute over $1 billion to provide resources they need after a predefined level of encounters have been realized at the border. Cuellar represents a border area comprised of Catholic Hispanics.
As I always say, I don't just visit the border. I live there. My family's there. I breathe the air. I drink the water. And it is a place I call home.
Cuellar is one of the most conservative Democrats in the House. He has often supported policies taking a conservative approach to issues ranging from abortion to border security. In New York City and San Antonio, it is currently projected to take until 2033 for asylum claimants to appear before ICE. At Tuesday's hearing, Cuellar said, "It's a little concerning that some of them have to wait until 2033 just to appear before you. Then they get another 2 to 3 years before they even go to an immigration judge." Meanwhile, at a different hearing on Wednesday, House Republicans criticized proposed budget cuts for Customs and Border Protection, or CBP. The 2024 CBP budget is $19.5 billion. This is down from $20.8 billion in fiscal year 2023. Representative Michael Guest said that figures he has seen from Homeland Security show record-high encounters with illegal immigrants, around 257,000 last month alone. Guest asked, should this not be one of the agencies that Congress should invest robustly in? At the same hearing, a Republican congressman accused Troy Miller, the acting CBP commissioner, of worsening the border situation.
You intentionally ended all construction of and contracts to build the border wall system. You attempted to terminate the migrant protection protocols, remain in Mexico policy, and when these efforts failed, you refused to fully enforce the policy.
Miller replied, saying the CBP hired approximately 1,100 processing coordinators and plans to bring in 500 more. and that the agency plans to upgrade existing systems to get information to the agents in the field faster and more efficiently.
Looking now to New York City. Mayor Eric Adams has some grievances with Washington. That's over the illegal immigration crisis in the Big Apple. Adams is accusing the White House of turning its back on the problem. Here's Adams yesterday.
This is one of the largest humanitarian crises that this city has ever experienced. Title 42 is getting ready to be released. What do you think is going to happen? Thousands of people are waiting to come across the border and potentially end up in New York City. So 52,000 can jump to 100,000 if we don't get this under control. This is in the lap of the President of the United States.
Adams blames Republicans for not changing immigration laws. He wants the illegal immigrants in the city to be able to work. But Adams says new laws are not needed to solve the crisis. He's calling for the president to take action and says all it will take is the stroke of a pen. Title 42 is set to end on May 11th. That's the COVID-era policy that limits illegal immigrants at the southern border. Todd Bensman, Senior National Security Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies, was recently at the border. He reports there is a human tidal wave of illegal immigrants massing there. These people are waiting to take advantage of the changing rules just weeks away. I spoke with him about what he saw. Todd Bensman, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So you've just returned from the southern border where you say a tidal wave of immigrants is building up, waiting for the Title 42 to end so they can come across. What did you see on the ground there?
Well, what was happening in the Juarez area of the northern border of across from El Paso is a gathering pool of immigrants from all over the world who are already starting to cross the river and turn themselves in. And a great many others have filled up all of the shelters and have been waiting for an opportunity to apply for humanitarian parole through this online app system. But that app system is collapsing, and they're just simply blowing it off and heading for the border, and the Biden administration appears to be letting them in. So it looks like both sides are kind of abandoning this whole humanitarian parole process in favor of the old way, which is to just cross in. And this is just a few weeks ahead of when Title 42 goes away, the instant expulsion. And they're coming, I think a lot of people are coming for that, waiting to see whether they can just cross in and get in that way instead of waiting in line.
So we know Border Patrol has been pretty overwhelmed and understaffed at the border in general. What do you think will happen once Title 42 comes down?
Well, there's a new system the administration is going to put in place. They're talking real tough. They're saying, we're going to presume nobody is eligible for asylum, and we're going to deport everybody under Title 8. Remember, Title 8, that's expedited removal. The problem is that they built into the whole policy all these gigantic loopholes. So pretty much everybody who comes in will be able to take advantage of one of those loopholes, one of those escape hatches, and just cross in. For example, unaccompanied minors are not subject to any of this. So all unaccompanied minors get in. So you can expect a huge flood of unaccompanied minors. Family groups or anybody really that crosses and just says, I'm afraid to go back to Mexico, they get in too. And if we say, no, you can't get in, we don't believe you, they can appeal till the cows come home and get in anyway that way. So I expect that everybody who crosses the border after May 11th will figure out a way to just take advantage of these loopholes. They'll tell each other on social media exactly how to do it.
Wow. So, what do you think should be done?
Well, deterrence. For one thing, the Remain in Mexico policy of 2021 is Trump's policy. He got rid of it under Biden, forced everybody to wait in Mexico for their asylum claims, which meant nobody wanted to do it at all. So they stayed home. Policies that that actually result in real deportations and removals and detention, those make people stay home. They won't spend the money to come, and a lot of them will go home who have already made the trip because they don't want to wait in Mexico. It's really just about actual deportation, actual detention under existing law. If they were to just do that, this would end tomorrow.
So it sounds pretty simple in your mind. Moving on, how does this wave compare? We've heard about other waves building at the border, coming across the border. In your mind, is this one bigger, smaller? What do you think?
I think this will be a very sizable wave. The intelligence community last year, when we were talking about getting rid of Title 42, was estimating anywhere from 12,000 to 18,000 a day. That would be up from 5,000, 6,000 a day now, and what it's been. So, I mean, the intelligence community was considering that there would be a lot of people pulsing in. The administration is even saying now we're expecting and telling people, get ready for a really significant wave over the border. It's not just Todd Bensman saying this. It's the administration warning the people that it's coming.
Todd Bensman, Senior National Security Fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
An IRS agent is alleging that the Hunter Biden tax evasion investigation is being mishandled. The official is seeking whistleblower protection to provide testimony to Congress. NTD's Daniel Monahan has the story.
The whistleblower is being represented by attorney Mark Lytle. Lytle told a group of congressional committee leaders on Wednesday that he wants to expose preferential treatment and false testimony to Congress by a senior political appointee. Lytle appeared on CBS Evening News.
Typical steps that a law enforcement investigator would take were compromised because of political considerations.
Lytle says the unnamed whistleblower is a career IRS criminal supervisory special agent who has been overseeing the ongoing and sensitive investigation of a high-profile controversial subject since early 2020. The New York Post reported that a congressional source confirmed the person in question is Hunter Biden. Lytle says his client has already testified internally at the IRS and has made disclosures to the Department of Justice and to the Office of the Inspector General. According to Lytle, his client can back up all of his claims.
The things he's been through are very well documented in emails and other communications with the Department of Justice.
Senator Ron Johnson told Real America's Voice that the truth is now trying to come out.
What is jaw-dropping is Hunter Biden knew he was being investigated by the IRS, and he continued his grifts. The family continued their grifts.
Johnson pointed an accusatory finger at the media.
These guys are brazen, that they know that they can count on the media to cover for them. They know that they're above the law.
Representative Russell Fry called the Biden family investigation explosive stuff on Fox News.
Where you see members of the Biden family that have no connection to energy companies whatsoever all of a sudden receive through a series of transactions this money.
Lytle says the whistleblower wishes to testify in a nonpartisan manner to the leadership of relevant committees on both sides of the aisle. Hunter Biden has been under federal investigation since 2018. The investigation is being led by Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss. He has not been charged with any crimes. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Fresh testimony on Capitol Hill paints a dire picture of the aviation industry. NTD's Daniel Monahan brings us the story.
Representative Garrett Graves reflected on the tough drop-off of air transport during COVID and the huge surge back post-pandemic.
We've seen some pretty challenging times in the aviation sector over the past several years.
Graves had a grim prediction for the aviation industry. The congressman does not see the situation with pilots, advanced aviation systems, flight attendants, and security personnel as sustainable. He says the disruptions, lack of capacity, and higher prices could all become the norm.
We're going off a cliff.
Ranking member Steve Cohen concurred.
The aviation industry is approaching a critical juncture with respect to its talent development, especially the recruitment, training, and retention of individuals in its workforce.
Becoming an airline pilot can cost in excess of 6 figures. A large chunk of that comes from the 1,500 hours of in-flight experience. The rule was enacted in 2013 largely, and Representative Sam Graves says better ways to train safer and better skilled pilots must be found.
We all know what the FAA found, and that is the number of flight hours you have are not a reflection of what kind of a pilot you are.
Airline Pilots Association President James Ambrosi says America has plenty of pilots. But Regional Airline Association CEO Faye Malarkey Black testified that some people have used data stripped of context to say the pilot shortage is not real.
And within 15 years, nearly half of all pilots will retire.
Black proposes raising the retirement age from 65 to 67.
No data shows a pilot is unsafe at 65, but this arbitrary line forces qualified pilots to retire when they have much to offer.
Several committee members said it's important to attract more ethnic minorities and women who are underrepresented in aviation, while at least 2 witnesses and several committee members suggested that pilots would benefit from more time in simulators. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Speaking of the skies, the Pentagon is tracking at least 650 possible UFO sightings. They were all reported by U.S. service members stationed in various locations. Sean Kirkpatrick is the director of the relevant office at the Pentagon. He told the Senate committee that the majority of unidentified object reports demonstrate ordinary behavior. They look like balloons, clutter, or other natural phenomena. Kirkpatrick also pointed out that about 3/4 of unidentified aerial phenomena come from 15,000 to 30,000 feet in the sky, where most planes fly.
I should also state clearly for the record that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known laws of physics.
But he did say there is a possible aerial threat from China and Russia. The public hearing was the 3rd Congress has ever held about UFOs. Are you a Facebook user? If so, you might be able to claim some free money about an over $700 million settlement. It's the result of a lawsuit that claimed Facebook violated users' privacy. The lawsuit says Facebook gave a political consulting firm access to 87 million users' data. That data was then allegedly used to target U.S. voters in the 2016 election. As part of the settlement, Facebook users can now apply for a cash payment if they had an account between May 2007 and December 2022. That would include those who later deleted their accounts to receive the money. Applicants should first fill out an online claim form and submit it by August 25th. It's unclear how much compensation each claimant will get. A final approval hearing is scheduled for September. In more tech news, Twitter CEO Elon Musk is threatening to sue Microsoft. He accuses the tech giant of illegally using the social media platform's data for training. His tweet on the issue came shortly after Microsoft announced that it's removing Twitter from one of its advertising platforms. Microsoft's website says its smart campaigns with multi-platform will no longer support Twitter, but noted that other social media channels such as Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn will continue to be available to clients. The company didn't provide details on why it dropped Twitter from its advertising platform. However, multiple media publications report that new Twitter feeds may have been at the center of the decision. For more detailed analysis on the conflict between Musk and Microsoft, and what kind of lawsuit Musk could possibly bring against Microsoft, tune into our business show at 5 p.m. Eastern. Turning to Arizona election disputes, the Cochise County, the county recorder, is granting continuing power over elections. The state attorney general was attempting to end the agreement, but a judge just rejected the request. The agreement was drafted in February 2023 by the County Board of Supervisors. It grants the county recorder control over most of the powers and duties of the election. Mays filed a lawsuit in March claiming the agreement violates the Arizona Constitution and Arizona law, but the judge ruled that the agreement was legal and that the county board couldn't interfere with county recorders doing their jobs during elections. New York has a new chief judge. The New York Senate has confirmed Rowan Wilson to lead the Court of Appeals and the entire state's court system. Confirmation vote caps months of conflict between New York Governor Kathy Hochul and state Senate Democrats over the direction of the court. Hochul's first choice, Hector LaSalle, faced a barrage of criticism from liberal senators and their allies. In an unprecedented move, the Senate rejected LaSalle. 62-year-old Wilson takes the place previously held by Judge Janet DeFiore, who resigned in August. Wilson has been an associate judge of the Court of Appeals since 2017. But prominent New York Democrat Carolyn Maloney said Wilson has poor judgment and that one of his rulings makes it harder to convict rapists. Republicans are concerned he could try to help Democrats redraw congressional voting maps in their favor. The current maps are believed to have helped Republicans regain a majority in the U.S. House. South Florida is still reeling from the historic flooding last week. The current biggest struggle, lack of fuel.
I don't know why they can't drive through water. I mean, I don't know. It's been a hassle though.
Very frustrating because I work as a pool maintenance contractor. I have to fill the tank every 2 days, and this is not good for me.
Gas stations are crippled with long lines of cars. Port Everglades in South Florida is home to a variety of local oil terminals. But the storm and flooding blocked traffic. Distributors were unable to reach individual gas stations. The state's Emergency Management Division is sending over 500,000 gallons of fuel to the affected regions. Here's a good reminder why many states have a move-over law in place. The Iowa State Patrol shared this close call between a driver and a trooper that happened recently in Coralville. The trooper is speaking with a driver that is pulled over when another driver hits the stopped car. The trooper and both drivers walked away unharmed. The move-over law states that drivers should move over or slow down when approaching any vehicles stopped on the side of the road. That goes for any law enforcement, emergency vehicles, and passenger cars with their hazard lights on. Coming up, data storage company Seagate is hit with a $300 million fine. The company shipped millions of hard drives to a blacklisted Chinese telecom firm. And China unveils its new recruitment policy, the focus on preparing for war. Is this a prelude to an invasion of Taiwan? We'll have the details soon when we return.
Did you know ESG is impacting every part of your life? From rising gas prices to global food shortages to out-of-control inflation, even losing your freedom of speech and being censored on the internet. It's all being driven by ESG ideology. Who's in control? What can you do about it? Find out in The Shadow State, the first documentary exposing ESG. The ESG movement of governments and corporations operates in the shadows. Only the light of truth can expose it. Watch The Shadow State documentary, streaming now.
Non-attorney spokesperson. This is a paid advertisement for legal services sponsored by Nightline Legal. Cases assigned on a random basis to participating law firms. If you or a loved one were stationed at Marine Corps Base Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1987 and were later diagnosed with cancer, Parkinson's disease, or other serious health effects, call right now. You may be entitled to financial compensation. Call right now to find out if you qualify.
Call 1-800-607-6124. 1-800-607-6124.
An exiled Chinese protester emerging to break the silence surrounding China's pandemic-driven protests. He shares the story of how he fled his home country after China's blank paper movement erupted, and how months trapped inside with little food and false promises drove the protests.
Dazed and afraid, Yi Cheng Huang barely managed to escape arrest in Shanghai last November. He had been participating in one of many protests, calling for an end to China's strict COVID-19 lockdowns.
Hello everyone, my name is Yi Cheng Huang. I'm 26 years old. I took part in the blank paper movement of November 2022. I was detained and now I flee away from China and now in Germany.
Mass protests have been unprecedented during Chinese leader Xi Jinping's decade in power. But after 3 years of stay-at-home orders, the uproar spread like a wildfire across the country. Some background: pandemic-driven lockdowns looked much different in China than what much of the world experienced in 2020.
Our life is without dignity, and it's like a very, very painful experience. We don't have food to eat. We can't go outside of the apartment for about nearly 3 months. And the government is cheating us. Like they first say that we are only going to lock you down for 3 days. And at the last, they locked us down for 3 months, nearly 3 months, and many people died during the lockdown.
Huang says that anger bubbled over on November 27th. That evening, the 400 or 500 member protests started out peaceful. Demonstrators chanted slogans and held up blank sheets of paper as symbols of their discontent. But after nightfall, police started violently arresting protesters.
I was put upside down, and my chin is on the ground, cement ground, and my shoes and glasses were lost in the Urumqi Road, middle Urumqi Road. And at that 1 minute is the most frightened minute in my life.
He also witnessed police slapping and beating several female protesters. Huang managed to sneak out unnoticed amid the chaos. Afterward, he kept a low profile and lived in extreme fear of arrest. His German visa arrived months later, and he left China in March without having been contacted by the police. But Huang says he took a strong sense of survivor's guilt with him.
Why should they in jail and I'm in freedom? And I think the one who is in jail might be me. It's very possible that now it's me that's in jail.
Chinese police suppressed the cross-country protests in a matter of days. Many demonstrators faced interrogation and arrest. Some were held for less than 24 hours, with others detained for several weeks.
I have the responsibility to devote my life to the fight for freedom. The world should stand with Chinese people instead of stand with Chinese government, because the world should notice the reality that Chinese government is harshly cracked down its own people.
China has not commented officially on the protests. Huang is one of the first to publicly reveal his identity after the vast majority of protesters fell silent under the threat of retribution.
Lawmakers are still trying to lessen U.S. dependence on Chinese telecommunications companies. Publicly traded companies could soon have to disclose if they use Chinese equipment. The House of Representatives just passed a bill mandating that. Companies would have to annually report if they use equipment or services from Chinese companies ZTE and Huawei. Both companies are banned in the United States. Congresswoman Susan Wild said last year that Huawei and ZTE operate as vehicles for the Chinese Communist Party to commit human rights violations, conduct mass surveillance, and spread their technology to other authoritarian regimes. The bill would also require the Secretary of State to submit a report on untrusted equipment being used by the U.S. and its allies. Data storage company Seagate will be paying a heavy fine for violating U.S. export control laws. The company shipped over $1 billion worth of hard drives to Huawei, a blacklisted Chinese company.
California-based Seagate Technology has agreed to pay a $300 million fine in a settlement with the Commerce Department. The data storage company shipped over 7 million hard drives worth more than $1 billion to Chinese telecom giant Huawei. Huawei was placed on a U.S. trade blacklist in 2019 due to national security concerns. A rule in August 2020 further restricted sales of certain foreign items made with U.S. technology to Huawei. The Commerce Department said Seagate was Huawei's sole supplier of hard drives during a one-year period ending in September 2021. The department also noted that this was the largest penalty it ever announced, not tied to a criminal case. The department said its competitors had stopped selling to them. Seagate continued sending hard disk drives to Huawei. Today's action is the consequence. Seagate maintains their foreign-made drives were not subject to U.S. export regulations. The company's CEO addressed the issue, saying, "While we believed we complied with all relevant export control laws at the time we made the hard disk drive sales at issue, we determined that settling this matter was the best course of action."
China's latest move, changing its policy for recruiting soldiers during wartime. The new rules from Beijing place a focus on preparing for war. Here are the details.
China's defense ministry revised its draft provisions, with new rules taking effect next month. For the first time, the regulations add a separate section on wartime conscription. Under it, the CCP's highest executive and military body would hand troop draft responsibility to local governments. The two bodies can also adjust recruitment arrangements in times of war. What's more, citizens receiving a draft notice must enlist on time and at the designated location, otherwise they face punishment. The amendment places a focus on preparing for war and calling up high-caliber recruits. Top on the draft list are retired military personnel and educated college students. But for parents, the policy's change might spell bad news.
Most families have only 1 or 2 kids because of the one-child policy. No one would send their children to die. We can't even secure our own jobs. All that talk about defending the country is a lie.
Are these new rules a warm-up for the invasion of Taiwan? A military expert says not necessarily.
I think this amendment looks more like a show for other countries. If the CCP were really readying for war, they would have done far more pre-work than simply revising the law.
But analysts say Beijing is indeed updating its legal system to brace for potential conflict. That's as tensions escalate in the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait.
And if you have any news tips or feedback for the show, don't hesitate to email us at news.today@ntd.com. When we come back, officials warn that Russia-aligned hacker groups are targeting Britain's critical national infrastructure. And France plans to use video surveillance powered by AI at the upcoming Paris Olympics, raising concerns over human rights violations. More shortly here on NTD News Today. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre tells Britain electricity, water, and other critical systems to boost their defenses. A cabinet minister warns that hackers sympathetic to Russia are increasingly targeting critical infrastructure.
Cabinet Office Minister Oliver Dowden warned that Russian hackers are seeking to disrupt or destroy Britain's critical infrastructure.
Over the last 18 months, the National Cybersecurity Centre has seen the rise of several Russian-aligned groups sympathetic to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Now, these are fringe state threats, the cyber equivalent of the Wagner group. And initially, those groups focused their attacks on Ukraine and the surrounding region. But recently, they have begun to turn their attention to the United Kingdom and its allies. They are now seeking opportunities to compromise our critical national infrastructure.
He said the centre was issuing an official threat notice to operators of critical national infrastructure, telling them to boost their defences. Dowden said the attempted attacks are different from the ones in the past.
These adversaries are ideologically motivated rather than financially motivated. Secondly, though these perpetrators are aligned to national actors, crucially, they're often not controlled by those foreign states. That makes them more opportunistic and less likely to show restraint.
Lindy Cameron, head of the National Cybersecurity Centre, also warned more needs to be done to protect the UK from threats posed by Russia-aligned cyber groups.
If the UK is to be the safest place to live and work online, then resilience must urgently move to the top of our investment shopping list. So we can't simply hope everything is going to be okay. And we must also be resilient to all threats, whether they come from nation states or cyber criminals.
Cameron also sounded a warning about the dramatic rise of China as a technology superpower. She echoed the language of the government's recent integrated review refresh, referencing the epoch-defining challenge China poses to the West.
Over to France now. 13 million spectators are expected to attend next year's Paris Olympics. The French government plans to use AI-powered video surveillance technology to keep the games safe. But human rights and privacy advocates are raising concerns. NTD's France correspondent David Vivez has the story.
At the end of March, the French parliament approved the use of AI-powered video surveillance, becoming the first country in the European Union to do so. The new powers will allow police to monitor the movements of millions of people who will descend on the capital for the 2024 Paris Olympics. Whether they are walking in the street, using public transport, or gathering on the premises of sporting events, automated video cameras will keep track of residents and visitors alike. Legal expert Marc Gauthier says the new technology constitutes a three-part system.
The system could be described as an automated data processing network. The cameras, which are of the highest possible resolution, have the capacity to capture and record wide as well as close-up images of a scene made up of individuals or vehicles, for example, or even a flow of movement or a group. Then there is facial recognition, which is a biometric and behavioral analysis. We can analyze a person's identity by their posture and gestures. This is just one more element of comparison. The software must then be able to compare this analysis with a database.
The new surveillance powers have met with strong opposition from technology watchdogs and privacy advocates. Amnesty International said the new technology risks permanently transforming France into a dystopian surveillance state and allowing large-scale violations of human rights elsewhere in the bloc. For Gauthier, the real issue is the database that will be used by authorities.
It's likely that such a system will inevitably lead to the systematic arrest of many people who are unfortunately part of the, in inverted commas, bad person database. In the current context, it should be noted that most of the operations carried out by the program would be illegal if they were carried out by a human being. This argument of machine impunity has already been used for programs that can send you targeted advertising and thus spy on and listen to your exchanges.
In 2020, authorities in Cannes and Paris used facial recognition to track those who weren't complying with the mask mandate in the public space. AI-assisted video surveillance can detect so-called abnormal behavior and crowd surges, which proponents says can serve to prevent crime or potential dangerous situations before they occur. According to a Senate report, this could have prevented terrorist attacks such as in Nice or chaotic crowd scenes like at the Champions League's final between Liverpool and Real Madrid final.
We are heading straight towards a digital identity, which will undoubtedly feed this data processing network. Without delving into crazy ideas, it's only one step away from a Chinese-style social credit system, knowing that the tendency of these approaches is often to reinforce discrimination by first and foremost increasing control over populations that are already highly monitored.
Gauthier says France's law will influence EU legislation on artificial intelligence. The first application of the AI system might be this summer during the Rugby World Cup. David Vives, NTD News, Paris.
Coming up, Russia releases new video ad that asks men to leave their civilian professions for the military life. It says their talents can be better used on the battlefield. And a Belarusian furniture company mimics Ikea products. Its first store in Moscow draws mixed reactions from Russian customers. Find out what they say when we return.
Henry Repeating Arms manufactures a line of classic American-made rifles and shotguns. With over 200 models to choose from and a wide variety of finishes and calibers, there's a Henry that's right for you. Every purchase is backed by our lifetime warranty and award-winning customer service. We invite you to order a copy of our free catalog and decals. Simply call the number on your screen or visit henryusa.com. That's henryusa.com.
The Fixture Pioneer, CGM. Professional AI intelligent fixtures. All-round integration of 4 systems. High precision, high durability, high quality. 2-micrometer repetition accuracy. More than 80 patent certificates. ISO 9001 approved. Precision clamping to meet your every need. CGM has it all. Pride of Taiwan, CGM.
Welcome back. A new Russian ad campaign hopes to attract more citizens to volunteer to fight in Ukraine. The ads challenge male viewers to show they are real men by leaving their civilian lives for the military. British military intelligence and Russian media reports suggest Moscow is seeking to recruit up to 400,000 soldiers. The ad has so far been released on major Russian social networking sites. The ad says recruits would be paid the equivalent of almost $2,500 a month as a starting salary. After tens of thousands of Russian men fled the country to avoid being drafted in September, Russian authorities are playing down the responsibility of a second draft and are seeking to recruit volunteers instead. Posters seeking professional soldiers have sprung up in the Russian capital in recent weeks. The posters promise potential recruits respect, an honorable profession, and decent pay. Ukrainian volunteers are helping to find mines in reclaimed areas. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on how they are using drones to get the job done.
Ukrainian Red Cross Society volunteers flew drones last Thursday over the deoccupied Mykolaiv region. Their mission was to help demining teams locate explosives.
The main part of this setup is a tablet with a big screen, so that we can see tiny details on the fields. It is harder to see looking on the phone screen.
This is not the main focus for the Ukrainian Red Cross Society, but it's created an emergency rescue team equipped with drones. The group currently consists of 6 volunteers.
If we see any object that reflects light, it may be metallic, plastic, cardboard, it glares, we don't know what it is, we fly closer to it from above, always from above, and take a picture right above it.
The pictures and coordinates are then transferred to demining teams, which remove the objects. This information can save the lives of both civilians and soldiers.
This is done in order to receive precise coordinates of its position on the field. We transfer these coordinates to our software with database and attach a photograph of the object to the mark.
More than a year after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, the two forces are still locked in a war of attrition. But Kyiv remains defiant in the face of Moscow's aggression. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A mysterious flash lit up the sky over Kyiv last night. Residents are speculating, was it a satellite crash, a missile from Russia, or something else? Footage shows a bright light suddenly illuminating the sky over the Ukrainian capital. Authorities say an unknown aerial object fell down at around 10 p.m. local time. The city then put out an air alert. Officials said they couldn't confirm if it was an enemy aircraft or missile attack. But residents of the wartime city say they weren't scared. Some even hypothesize an extraterrestrial cause.
I had a dream of me seeing a UFO arriving. In this moment, I realize that I am in Ukraine, in Kyiv. In this moment, I see a huge flash over the whole sky. The sky became filled with sun and bright blue, beautiful.
Maybe it was a flash of hope, hope for our victory. To be honest, it would be great for it to be some kind of a sign for us.
Kyiv is under frequent attack by Russian missiles and drones. These airstrikes have forced residents to take shelter underground from time to time. In Belarus, a furniture company is mimicking the products of Swedish giant Ikea. It opened its first store in Moscow to a mixed initial reaction from consumers. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on the faux furniture.
Scores of Western companies halted all retail and production operations in Russia after Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Ikea was one of them. so Swedhouse is trying to take its place.
First of all, we are not IKEA. We aim to be like IKEA. We have our own brands, our own goods. Yes, we have IKEA items as well. We sell them. 15 to 20% of our range are original IKEA products. Nobody prohibits us from doing this. We sell it, people buy it.
Customers inside the store offered differing opinions.
We have been missing IKEA a lot lately. This new store is, let's say, a pleasant beginning. Nice beginning of the return of things we miss. We hope that there will be more items on sale. We will return. The prices did not impress me at all.
Maybe it's just the beginning.
Maybe things will get better. We will see.
But not now?
Now I'm not inspired.
Others said the premises were too small.
Not that I missed IKEA much, but this shop is strange. Only labyrinths, and I can't navigate myself here.
Do you think it will be an alternative to IKEA?
The store is too small to be an alternative.
The store's layout has also drawn criticism from shoppers.
Goods must not be just lying on top of each other. IKEA had a certain approach to product placement regarding the usage of space. You could lie on beds, test the furniture. They had design code. They had furnished locations like rooms. The list goes on. Plus, some items are simply worse in quality.
Swedhouse initially aims to open 5 stores in Moscow malls. Then the company plans to expand into other Russian regions next year. IKEA briefly resumed online sales last summer. Part of the company still operates 14 shopping malls in Russia under the brand Mega. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
When we come back, a new exhibit at the Museum of Copenhagen celebrates one of the country's most revered illustrators. Never before seen original drawings and designs are on display. We'll take you there on NTD News Today. Cheerful works from one of Denmark's most revered illustrators are now on display at the Museum of Copenhagen. The artist's posters put the Danish capital on the world stage in the 1960s. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details on this colorful return to fame.
Danish poster illustrator Ib Antony achieved worldwide fame in the 1950s and 60s, but he almost faded into obscurity.
After the Second World War, after the 50s, that was in some ways struggling times, he reminded us what a wonderful country and what a wonderful capital we have and all the great things we have going for us.
Now, never-before-seen original drawings and designs are on display at the Museum of Copenhagen. The exhibit also features famous works that put Denmark on the map.
He was part of branding Copenhagen. Branded Denmark, what he would call Mother Denmark. This notion, this narrative of this fairy tale country at the far north.
In the 1960s, Antony's work became known worldwide. So he was commissioned to create a campaign for the Copenhagen Tourist Association.
He got his first job branding Denmark. First at the tourist organization for Copenhagen, where he made something called the Season Series, where he would make a poster for summer, spring, autumn, and winter.
The campaign was a huge success. Soon, tourists flocked to the Danish capital, and hotels struggled to meet demand. Antony later worked for the Danish Foreign Ministry, where he honed the same childish style.
He seems like a man with a sense of humor. And he liked to take something that we know and just twist it a little. And he would do that with some of our most precious symbols, like the Little Mermaid. He would take a Little Mermaid and give her a hat from the Royal Guard.
But in 1973, Antony died in a hotel fire in central Copenhagen. At just 44 years old, he was at the peak of his career. Then in 2009, Antony's nephew began exploring suitcases of the artist's old drawings.
He found it and was just in awe of all this magnificent drawings, all this story that just lied there in the attic. And he took some examples under his arm and he went throughout the streets of Copenhagen to different galleries.
The Making of Wonderful Copenhagen poster artist Ib Antony runs at the Museum of Copenhagen until October 31st. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
A rare, total solar eclipse darkened the skies over the west coast of Australia. A small seaside town became one of the few places in the world where onlookers could witness the celestial event. Thousands of astronomy fans came from around the world to watch the spectacle. The solar eclipse lasted for more than 3 hours. A local observatory recorded the whole process. About 11:30 local time, the moon crossed the sun for about 1 minute. Darkness fell, and the temperature dropped. Viewers cheered out loud as the eclipse hit totality.
Oh, incredible. Just incredible.
Someone turned the lights out and turned them back on again. How good was that?
Oh, just so thrilled and felt so eerie, and I had shakes. I just so surprised, and just something I'd never experienced before, really.
According to NASA, a hybrid eclipse occurs when the moon's shadow moves across the Earth's surface, and the solar eclipse varies between an annular and a total one. The sight will appear again in 9 years. Pomegranates may take a little more work to eat, but the effort pays off. This giant berry offers a wide range of health benefits. Here's Gina Marie with Strong Mind and Body.
When was the last time you had a pomegranate? Can't remember? Never had one? Too much trouble to open? I get it. These are typical responses, as these fruits aren't all that common. But I'm going to tell you a little more about them in hopes that you'll give them a try or at least eat them more often. So what are pomegranates? Pomegranates are small to medium, round-sized red fruits. They are native to the region running from northeast Turkey to Afghanistan. They have a hard-like shell exterior that houses juicy seeds. In ancient times, pomegranates were used to treat a number of health problems. This includes digestive disorders, intestinal parasites, and skin problems. Scientists have recognized the health benefits of eating the seeds or drinking pomegranate juice. The most common complaint about pomegranates is the work involved in extracting the seeds. There are plenty of videos online that will teach you how to prepare one quickly and easily. Next, we'll look at 5 benefits of pomegranates. Number 1, they reduce blood pressure. Research involving pomegranate juice has shown that drinking pomegranate juice can lower blood pressure. Number 2, antibacterial. Pomegranates contain compounds that may help eliminate certain microorganisms. These include bacteria, yeasts, and fungi. These compounds may help with the microorganisms that cause bad breath and tooth decay. Number 3, they boost bone and joint health. Bone and joint health are important for everyone, and especially older women in menopause and post-menopause. Research has shown that pomegranate oil extract has positive therapeutic effects on bone health. Number 4, reduce inflammation. Chronic inflammation is associated with many serious diseases and health problems. Pomegranates contain compounds that have demonstrated anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. And number 5, support urinary health. For kidney stone protection, pomegranate extract may help. In a study of adults who experienced recurring kidney stone development, the use of 1,000 milligrams of pomegranate extract for 90 days appeared to inhibit the formation of the stones. You can eat pomegranates as a snack or add the seeds to smoothies, fruit and vegetable salads, yogurt, puddings, grilled meat or fish, punch, wine, cocktails, mocktails, and dips.
A Powerball ticket worth more than $1.5 million will soon expire. The ticket for the October 26th drawing matched all 5 numbers, missing only the Powerball. It was sold in Los Gatos, California, that's south of San Francisco. Lottery officials are urging anyone who bought a Powerball ticket at the mobile gas station on Los Gatos Boulevard to check their car, wallet, junk drawer, or anywhere else they might have put it. If no one turns in the winning ticket by next Monday, April 24th, the $1.5 million prize will go to California public schools. Thanks for tuning in today. If you'd like to share any news tips or feedback for the show, please feel free to email us at news.today@ntd.com. I'm Chris Beers, NTD News, New York City.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.